Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Listen carefully because this is important. Life is not a static thing. You are not a fixed entity trapped in the person you were yesterday. That's a delusion, and it's a dangerous one. The truth is that you are always in flux, always transforming. The only real question is whether you are moving towards something better or something worse. And believe me, there is no standing still. If you think you can just remain who you are forever, you're mistaken. You will change whether you want to or not. Pain will come. Suffering is inevitable. Loss, disappointment, betrayal, these things are part of existence. And when they arrive, they will alter you. They will break down parts of you that once seemed indestructible. But that's not necessarily a tragedy. It can be, of course, if you let it consume you, if you become resentful, bitter, and weak. But it can also be the thing that makes you stronger, the thing that sharpens you, that forges you into something more resilient, more capable. That choice, whether you become weaker or stronger, is yours. And you have to take that seriously. You will never be the same. Think about that deeply. The things you do today, the things you say, the things you think, these are not just fleeting moments. They are shaping you. Every lie you tell yourself, every excuse you make, every time you avoid responsibility, it's changing you. It's making you into someone who avoids, someone who deceives, someone who shrinks from the weight of reality. And once you let yourself slide into that state, it's incredibly difficult to claw your way back. But the same is true in the other direction. Every time you act with integrity, every time you do something difficult, even though you don't feel like it, every time you take responsibility for something instead of passing it off, you are strengthening yourself. You are becoming someone better. You are creating a future you who is stronger than the present you. And why wouldn't you want that? You cannot step into the same river twice, and you cannot live the same day twice. Who you were yesterday is not who you are today, and who you are today is not who you will be tomorrow. So the question is, who will you become? Will you let yourself be shaped by fear, by failure, by resentment? Or will you take hold of your own potential and force yourself to become something greater? Because you will never be the same, and that is either your greatest opportunity or your greatest downfall. Change is inevitable. Change is not just a possibility, it is an unavoidable reality. Whether we like it or not, we are constantly evolving. There is no such thing as remaining the same. Every moment, every experience, and every decision contributes to the shaping of who we are and who we will become. The belief that we can simply stay as we are, that we can remain unchanged while life moves around us, is an illusion. The world does not stand still, and neither do we. From the moment we are born, we are in a state of flux. Physically, we grow, age, and eventually decline. Mentally, our thoughts shift, our perspectives widen, and our beliefs either strengthen or dissolve. Emotionally, we encounter joy, sorrow, love, and loss, each leaving an imprint on our psyche. Even if we resist change, even if we fight against it, we cannot prevent it from occurring. What we can do, however, is decide whether change will shape us for the better or for the worse. One of the greatest mistakes people make is assuming they can remain the same person throughout life. That kind of thinking breeds stagnation. People say, this is just who I am, as if identity is a fixed point in time. But it isn't. Who you are today is a result of every experience you've had, every choice you've made, and every challenge you've faced. And who you will be tomorrow is determined by what you do today. This means that if you are not consciously working toward improvement, you are, by default, moving toward deterioration. There is no neutral ground. The inevitability of change can be frightening. It can make people feel powerless, as though they are at the mercy of external forces shaping their lives. But that is not entirely true. While you cannot stop change from happening, you can influence the direction in which it takes you. You can either take responsibility for your transformation, guiding it toward growth and strength, or you can let yourself be shaped by fear, passivity, and avoidance. Consider the person who refuses to learn, to adapt, or to challenge themselves. They believe they can remain as they are, but in reality, they are regressing. Skills deteriorate when they are not practiced. Minds become rigid when they are not exposed to new ideas. Bodies weaken when they are not exercised. Relationships wither when they are not nurtured. In contrast, the person who embraces change, who learns, adapts, and faces challenges head-on becomes stronger, more capable, and more resilient. Think about the difficult experiences in life. A loss, a failure, or a betrayal can shatter a person, but it can also forge them into someone wiser and more capable. The difference lies in how they respond. Do they resist change, clinging to the past and refusing to grow? Or do they accept that they will never be the same and use that transformation as a tool for progress? The people who thrive are not the ones who avoid change, but the ones who use it as fuel to become better. Change is inevitable, but whether it leads to growth or decline is up to you. You cannot prevent it, but you can shape it. The choices you make, the habits you develop, and the mindset you adopt will determine the kind of person you become. And since you will never be the same, why not take control of that process and become someone stronger, wiser, and more capable? The alternative is to let life change you by default, and that is rarely for the better. Suffering shapes you. Suffering is an unavoidable part of life. No one escapes it. At some point, you will experience pain, loss, disappointment, failure, or betrayal. This is not a possibility, it is a certainty. The question is not whether you will suffer, but how you will respond when suffering inevitably comes. Because suffering will shape you, there is no avoiding that either. The only real choice you have is whether it will make you stronger or weaker. Pain has a way of forcing you to confront who you truly are. It strips away illusions, comfort, and the false security you may have built around yourself. It reveals your weaknesses, your vulnerabilities, and your limitations. And that is precisely why it is so important. People do not grow in comfort. Growth happens in struggle, in adversity, in those moments when you feel like you cannot go on, but you do anyway. Some people let suffering consume them. They become bitter, resentful, and hopeless. They blame the world, other people, or their circumstances for their pain, and in doing so, they surrender their ability to change. They allow suffering to shape them into someone weaker, someone who avoids responsibility, someone who withdraws from life. That is one possible outcome. But there is another path. You can take your suffering and use it as a tool for growth. You can let it refine you, strengthen you, and turn you into someone more capable of facing the world. This is not easy. It requires effort, discipline, and a willingness to endure discomfort. But it is possible, and those who take this path emerge from suffering as stronger versions of themselves. Think about the people who inspire you, those who have accomplished great things, who have demonstrated incredible resilience, who seem wise and composed in the face of hardship. Do you think they were simply born that way? Of course not. They became that way through suffering, through difficulty, through moments of deep struggle that forced them to develop strength, patience, and wisdom. Every strong person you admire has suffered, and what sets them apart is how they responded to it. This does not mean you should seek out suffering for its own sake. That would be foolish. But when it comes, as it inevitably will, you should not run from it. You should not pretend it isn't there. Instead, you should face it directly and ask, what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? Because if you refuse to do that, suffering will shape you in a different way. It will break you down instead of building you up. Suffering also has the power to deepen your understanding of others. When you go through pain, you develop a greater capacity for empathy. You begin to see that others too are struggling. You become more patient, more compassionate, more aware of the complexities of human existence. People who have never suffered or who have refused to learn from their suffering often lack this depth of understanding. They see the world in black and white, failing to recognize the struggles hidden beneath the surface of others' lives. If you are suffering right now, understand that you have a choice. You can let it destroy you, or you can let it forge you into something stronger. You can let it define you as a victim, or you can let it define you as someone who overcomes. And if you choose the latter, you will not only survive suffering, you will be transformed by it. You will emerge as someone more capable, more resilient, and more prepared for whatever comes next. Because suffering is inevitable, but so is the opportunity to grow from it. Your choices define your future self. Every action you take, every thought you entertain, and every habit you form is shaping the person you are becoming. This is an undeniable truth. You are not a fixed entity. You are constantly in the process of becoming someone else. The question is, who are you becoming? Are your choices leading you towards strength, competence, and wisdom? Or are they dragging you toward weakness, regret, and self-destruction? Because make no mistake, there is no neutral ground. Every choice, no matter how small, is moving you in one direction or the other. People often underestimate the power of their daily decisions. They think their actions don't matter, that skipping a workout, telling a small lie, or procrastinating on an important task won't have any real consequences. But that's not true. Everything you do is reinforcing something in you. When you avoid responsibility, you are training yourself to be the kind of person who avoids responsibility. When you act dishonestly, you are shaping yourself into someone who deceives. When you give in to laziness, you are becoming a person who cannot be relied upon. And over time, these small choices accumulate into something far greater than you anticipated. The person you will be 5 years from now is not some mystery waiting to be revealed. It is being created by the choices you are making today. If you want to know what your future will look like, look at your current habits. Are you disciplined? Are you pushing yourself to improve? Are you taking responsibility for your actions? Or are you making excuses, blaming others, and avoiding the difficult things you know you should be doing? Because the trajectory of your life is not determined by fate or luck, it is determined by your actions. repeated consistently over time. Think about the moments where you are faced with a difficult decision. You can either take the easy path, giving in to temptation, avoiding effort, blaming circumstances, or you can take the harder path, the one that requires discipline and responsibility. That choice matters, not just in the moment, but in the long term, because every time you make a decision, you are reinforcing a pattern. You are strengthening a particular version of yourself. This is why self-improvement is not about massive overnight changes. It is about small, consistent choices that add up over time. You don't become strong by going to the gym. Once you become strong by choosing to train every day, even when you don't feel like it. You don't become wise by reading one book. You become wise by making learning a lifelong habit. You don't build integrity by making one honest decision. You build it by refusing to compromise your values, even when it's inconvenient. And this applies to failure as well. People often believe that making one bad choice defines them forever. But that's not true. Everyone makes mistakes, but the real question is, what do you do next? Do you let failure define you, or do you use it as an opportunity to learn and improve? The people who succeed are not those who never fail, but those who refuse to let failure stop them. The future version of yourself is being built right now. Every action, every decision, every thought is shaping who you are becoming. And if you are not conscious of that fact, you are letting your future be determined by default. The person who takes responsibility for their choices is the person who shapes their own destiny. Because the truth is simple, your choices today define who you will be tomorrow. Choose wisely. You must take control of your transformation. You are always changing. Whether you realize it or not, you are in a constant state of transformation. The question is not whether you will change, but whether you will be the one directing that change or simply allowing it to happen to you. Because if you do nothing, if you live passively, letting circumstances, emotions, and other people dictate your path, you will still change. But you won't like the result. You will become weaker, more bitter, more confused, and less capable. That is the price of inaction. The alternative is to take control of your transformation, to become the kind of person who actively shapes their future, rather than being shaped by forces they refuse to acknowledge. This is not an easy process. It requires discipline, effort, and unrelenting commitment to personal growth. But what is the alternative? If you don't take control, something else will, and you probably won't like where it takes you. Most people drift through life without ever consciously deciding who they want to become. They react to their environment instead of shaping it. They blame their upbringing, their circumstances, or the people around them for their failures. And in doing so, they surrender control over their own evolution. But you do not have to live that way. You can take ownership of your transformation and decide right now that you are going to become someone stronger, wiser, and more capable. This starts with responsibility. You must take responsibility for where you are in life. It doesn't matter what has happened to you. It only matters what you choose to do about it. Yes, maybe you were dealt a difficult hand. Maybe you faced hardships that others didn't. But dwelling on that does nothing to improve your situation. The only way forward is to acknowledge where you are and take action to move in the direction you want to go. Because no one else is going to do it for you. Taking control of your transformation also means setting a clear vision for the kind of person you want to be. If you don't have a goal, you will be pulled in 100 different directions by external forces, your emotions, other people's opinions, society's expectations. But if you define your future self with precision, you can begin working toward it intentionally. Who do you want to be in a year? In 5 years? What skills do you want to develop? What kind of discipline do you need? What values will you refuse to compromise on? Answering these questions is the first step in actively shaping your transformation. Once you have a vision, you must take action, consistent, disciplined action. Change does not happen through wishful thinking. You cannot simply hope to be stronger, smarter, or more resilient. You have to build those qualities through your choices. That means doing things you don't feel like doing. It means pushing through discomfort. It means recognizing that every action, no matter how small, is either reinforcing your transformation or weakening it. And here's the truth: transformation is painful. Growth is uncomfortable. You will have to let go of habits, mindsets, and even relationships that no longer serve you. You will face resistance, both from within yourself and from the people around you. But that is the price of becoming something greater. You cannot stay the same and expect your life to improve. You must be willing to struggle, to fail, and to keep going despite the difficulties. Taking control of your transformation also means rejecting the victim mindset. If you see yourself as powerless, you will act as if you are powerless. And if you act powerless, you will remain stuck. The moment you decide that you are responsible for your own growth, you reclaim your power. You stop waiting for external circumstances to change and start changing yourself. And as you do, you will begin to see the results, maybe not immediately, but over time your actions will shape a future version of you that is far beyond who you are today. Growth is uncomfortable but necessary. Growth is not a pleasant process. It is painful, demanding, and often discouraging. It requires you to step outside of what is familiar, to face discomfort, and to endure struggle. But the reality is that without this discomfort, there is no real progress. You cannot stay the same and expect your life to improve. You must be willing to suffer in the short term if you want to become someone stronger in the long term. Think about any meaningful transformation building muscle, learning a new skill, overcoming personal weaknesses. None of these things happen without discomfort. If you want to get stronger physically, you have to push your body beyond its limits. If you want to become more competent, you have to engage with challenges that test you, that force you to think harder, work harder, and persist when you feel like quitting. If you want to develop discipline, you have to deny yourself easy pleasures and endure the frustration of self-control. In every area of life, growth demands sacrifice. But most people avoid discomfort. They seek comfort at all costs, avoiding difficult conversations, postponing hard work, and indulging in distractions. They tell themselves that they are waiting for the right time or that they just aren't ready yet. But that mindset is a trap. There is never a perfect time, and waiting until you feel ready is the fastest way to ensure that you never take action at all. Growth happens when you push through resistance, not when you wait for conditions to be ideal. This is why so few people reach their full potential. It is not because they lack intelligence, talent, or opportunity. It is because they are unwilling to endure the discomfort that comes with growth. They give up too soon. They seek the easy path instead of the difficult but meaningful one. And as a result, they remain stagnant, trapped in the same patterns, making the same mistakes, and wondering why their lives never improve. But if you are willing to embrace discomfort, if you can push through pain, failure, and uncertainty, then you will separate yourself from the masses. You will develop resilience, strength, and competence, and over time, that suffering you endured will no longer feel like suffering. It will feel like proof that you earned every ounce of progress you made, because real growth is never easy, but it is always worth it. Reject the victim mindset. The victim mindset is one of the most destructive forces you can allow into your life. It tells you that your circumstances, your past, or other people are the cause of your suffering and your lack of progress. It convinces you that you have no control over your life, that you are powerless to change, and that external forces are to blame for your misfortune. But the truth is far different. The moment you adopt a victim mindset, you give away your power. You surrender control over your future and let your circumstances dictate your actions. And once you do that, you remain stuck in a cycle of helplessness and inaction. The victim mindset traps you in a narrative of powerlessness. It leads you to believe that you are the product of your environment, your past experiences, or the actions of others. While it's true that external circumstances can have an impact on your life, you always have a choice in how you respond. You are not defined by your past or by what others have done to you. You are defined by how you choose to move forward. When you adopt a victim mentality, stop taking responsibility for your actions. You begin to see yourself as a passive participant in your own life, someone who is constantly reacting to the world around them rather than actively shaping their own path. You might make excuses for why you can't succeed, blaming everything from your upbringing to your current situation. And while some of those factors may have had an influence, they do not determine your future. Your future is shaped by the decisions you make today. Rejecting the victim mindset means taking ownership of your life. It means acknowledging that you have the power to change, to improve, and to grow regardless of your circumstances. It means understanding that while you cannot control everything that happens to you, you can control how you respond to it. No one can take your power away unless you give it to them. The victim mindset keeps you trapped in the past and in a constant state of blame. But the moment you take responsibility, you empower yourself. You begin to realize that your life is in your hands, and you are the one who decides how it unfolds. When you let go of the victim mentality, you open the door to possibility, to growth, and to true freedom. You stop waiting for things to change and start making them change yourself. The reality is this: you are either actively shaping yourself or you are being shaped by forces outside of your control. There is no in between. If you do nothing, life will transform you into something weak, resentful, and regretful. But if you take control, if you consciously choose to become better every day, you will forge yourself into someone stronger, someone wiser, someone who can handle whatever life throws at them. So the choice is yours. Will you passively allow yourself to be changed by the world? Or will you take control and shape yourself into something greater, because the transformation is happening whether you like it or not? The only question is who is in charge of it. So here's the reality: you will change. You will transform. The question is, will you do it consciously, with purpose, with responsibility? Or will you let yourself be shaped by fear, by weakness, by passivity? Because there is no standing still. Every decision you make today is constructing the person you will be tomorrow. If you avoid responsibility, if you shrink from difficulty, if you surrender to despair, you will become someone you don't respect, someone resentful, weak, and incapable. But if you take control, if you face your suffering head on, if you discipline yourself and aim at something meaningful, you will become someone formidable, someone who can withstand life's chaos, someone who can lift the burdens of existence, not just for yourself, but for others as well. So ask yourself, who are you becoming? Are your actions leading you toward strength or toward decline? If you don't like the answer, change it, because you can. The path is difficult, but it is there. And the sooner you take responsibility for your transformation, the sooner you will move toward the person you could be. And that person, if you commit fully, is far greater than you can imagine.